I've read out a bunch of questions.
Oh yeah?
I'll ask them in present because most of them are just like rubbish. I
Okay.
haven't written back.
And they might change them when you ask them. Like you
Yeah.
might come up with something else.
So as um, I was wondering what you mean when you say the body is empty. Because I don't really understand that because it seems like the body has lots of things to it, like feeling and warm and cold and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean it in the sense that there's nobody experiencing this. What is the difference between those feelings of cold and the motions and the sensations and the outside world?
So you mean it's empty of a difference between inside and outside?
I mean that there's nothing actually experiencing it, there is simply everything happening.
But when you say it though, do you mean the body or do you mean everything? Because like when you're saying there's nothing experiencing it, I'm not sure if you mean like this totality, oneness of everything, or like individual differentiated things within that. You see what I mean?
Um, Everything.
So when you're talking about like individual things being empty, you, you don't mean that you're experiencing that individual thing emptily.
No, it
Okay.
means that there's nothing experiencing it, there's always sensation happening. But what is the difference between the sensation and the world? So there is looking, and there's an object that's looked at, or there's smelling, and there's something that's smelt. But is there actually an inside and outside world happening?
So inside world being thoughts, feelings, sensations, and outside world being
Something else.
not
But
that.
but we don't know outside sensation. So we
Yeah.
smell something and we say there is something out there that smells that we've smelt. We see something and we say there's something out there that we've seen. But that's all in a world of a dream, of imagination. Actually, there isn't a difference between the sensory perception and the world. They are the same thing.
So if someone uh, grew up in a like really messed up way and say they were being experimented on by scientists or something,
Yeah.
and they had this really crazy perception, you're saying that would be the world for them. You know, that would be everything for them. So everything's dependent on sort of your conditioning in a way.
On the body that interprets it, yeah.
Okay, but you just said the body that interprets it, which says is like a separate body
Yeah.
in my like perception.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain it.
um, yeah, I just don't get because it seems like from what you're saying, you say a lot of stuff about like everything being everything and it's all moving and it's all in the flow, but then you also like differentiate like a body which does things and like a character that has a story, and like I can't really consolidate those views. They don't really make sense together for me.
Yeah. It's just this, it's just, it's just like building blocks, and what life's doing is it's giving the appearance that there is a body experiencing a separate world. And that's how it seems. It seems like there's a body experiencing a separate world. But actually there is just energy experiencing itself with all these different building blocks. And it seems to build a world, and it seems to build a body, all these different bodies which interpret this world. But in actuality, the energy is playing the world, the energy is playing the body, the energy is playing everything, every role. And this is actually the experience. This is always the experience. But the person just keeps looking at life through itself. And itself is always in subject and object and separation. Or this aliveness, this beingness, that's been there since the body was born, and even prior to that, but we can only remember normally to when the body was born. This sense of being, which is always there no matter what happens, is actually everything. But the separate self pulls it in and makes it feel like you are alive and that you are experiencing something. But that sense of aliveness, that instantaneousness that's always there no matter what changes, is actually everything and nothing. It doesn't belong to someone. The person thinks it belongs to me.
So my view is that I'm experiencing from a body, I'm a person, whatever, and there's evidence for that. If I look around, then there's a head which moves, and I only see according to what my head moves in.
But the evidence is always dependent on that which judges it, which is our language. And our language is subject-object. So of course it's going to fit in.
So you're saying the fitting in is nothing to do with the actual experience?
No.
It's like,
So what's the actual experience now? Is there somebody looking at the computer? Is there something looking at the computer or the cup? Is there somebody that actually fills the table? There is a sensation that appears. And then we say, I fill the table. It's all a false world.
but it's the only word you have, right?
Yes, but it's not you that has it. Who is the you that would have it?
So there's something that isn't me that has it.
No, not either. But who do you imagine yourself to be to have it?
It just seems like a presence. I don't
Yeah,
really
yeah,
actually think so.
yeah, a presence. And this aliveness is there no matter what changes in it. All the feelings, all the sensations, the scenery, the people, everything changes in that presence. But the energy of the self sucks in that presence and say, it's my presence and I'm alive and I am something separate from everything else. And this exists in time. That functioning exists in time and is the illusion.
But if it's outside of time, then surely experience wouldn't make any sense in terms of continuity.
Yeah, so all that functioning appears, but the essence of everything is presence and doesn't belong to somebody. It's not somebody's presence. You think you're alive, or people think they're alive inside this body, but actually there is presence that is everything. And it's using all these building blocks in order to have a subject-object experience. But actually there is no subject-object. That beingness, that aliveness, has never belonged inside the body.
It feels like I kind of get it, but like I don't want to fully get it. Like there's something just like holding me back, like a very thin threshold.
Yeah, yeah. The person's been so used to existing, and it's a really different way. It's really different because suddenly all these things that were important before aren't important anymore. And the person, the separate self, is scared of losing all its rules and regulations.
Mm. This kind of brings me back to something I wanted to ask. Was like, yeah, okay, it loses a bunch of stuff, but surely that stuff is useful for like succeeding culturally.
Yeah, and the things that are necessarily in order for survival will stay.
Okay, that's not very inspirational.
It is love, though. It's everything that's ever wanted. It is completion that's being talked about. That presence, that aliveness is absolute completion, but it belongs to nobody. Nobody owns it. It's not containable by anything or controllable. There's nothing that you can blame anymore. It's everything. Looking through a human body, and it's nothing. It's totally mysterious. It belongs no more in one thing than another. War to beauty. It's totally still and moving simultaneously. It's loud and silent.
You said it's not containable, but like surely it's contained to what experience occurs, you know? Like surely it's, if there's sight, then it's contained to that. Hearing, then it's contained to that. Thoughts, then it's contained to that.
Sort of, but only if you imagine that there's something outside of that. Then it's not contained if you don't have the imagination that there is something possibly outside of that. If that is all there is, the sight, the feeling, the sensation, then it's not contained, it's actually boundless.
Okay. Okay. We're getting a bit of lag now.
We're getting what?
A bit of lag.
Yeah. Is my video all stuck again? Nope.
Yeah. So, are you saying that it's like this, like forever, even when there is a self, there isn't a self?
Yeah.
But like, okay, I'm gonna get like pedantic. So if there's always been a self, no, it's always not been a self. Like, and then there's physiological changes in the body which make it appear like there isn't a self anymore. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, because surely there wouldn't have to be physiological changes in the body for there to not be a self. You see what I mean? Like, it seems like there's a chain of causation of gradual enlightenment, which leads to the end point, which I guess doesn't make sense if that there was it was like everyone's always had no self. I think they just call me an idiot and not answer that, because I feel like I'm being really pedantic.
I really don't know how it all works. All I know is that I don't know if it's a thing in the brain that changes, or I don't know. In a way, that doesn't seem very logical, but then in another way, it seems like a good way to explain it. But
Right.
but this is free, and that's it. This is free. The person isn't free. But the reason why that's so incomprehensible is the person can't get anything in this. The person can only get something in time.
But it's not really getting anything, right?
No.
Ah. There's a nice quote from Hang Po, who's a Chinese Zen master, and he said that people fear falling into the void, but they don't realize that their mind is already void. So what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Well, that was quite nice.
It is. Even the illusion of self is totally empty of anything. It has no substance. It's never really happening.
What do you mean by happening? Never really happening? Because it seems like things occur, right? Like, so surely it is happening because it's there.
This is happening, but the illusion of self's never really happening.
So you're saying there's a this, which is what is happening always, and then the illusion of self appears in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. um, so I think we talked a little bit about this before. I didn't really get any closure. Like, so like, if I close my eyes, then there's like a spatial awareness of where I'm having feelings in my body. Like, I'm feeling energy in my chest.
Yeah.
As an example, right now I'm feeling something on my eyes. And I recognize that as something happening in space on my body at certain places, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess that's what I think is a body, you know, that area of space which feels that energy and that touch. And I guess I just don't really see how that body can like not exist, or that space can not exist. So I asked the question. I can't remember what it was now. Were you thinking of an answer? Or...
What
Oh, it's my video question. Do you remember what I said?
No, but there's some words that want to come. But
Okay.
I don't remember what you said, so I don't
It's
know.
fine, it's fine. Just say the words. It's fine.
Yeah. There's always an escape to, there's always an attempt to escape intimacy. Like the more that we try to understand something and the more that we try to know this, the more there's a removal from this. And this is so intimate. It means the end of the barrier between you and me. And I don't just mean that as an intellectual idea, I mean energetically, so it means every part of me is you, and every part of you is me, which doesn't necessarily equal pleasure. It doesn't necessarily equal pain. It's the end of any superiority to anything. Because there isn't a divide between you and me, it's all imagined. This is an absolute falling in love with yourself, the end of rejecting anything about yourself. Anything. Because everything reflects back the self. Everything reflects back that one energy. So every dislike you have in another, every like you have in another, is that same energy. We always think me. It's me that's reflected everywhere. The me is what keeps the divide. This is so intimate. Because your suffering is my suffering, your pain is my pain, your love is my love, your insanity is my insanity, your knowledge is my knowledge, your beauty is my beauty. But I don't mean this as Lisa. As Lisa, you are somebody else out there. As Lisa, you are something independent. I mean it as everything. Everywhere you look is that same presence that's been there when the body was 6, when the body was 3, when it cried, when it laughed, when it joked, when it was angry, when it was happy. All there is that presence everywhere, reflecting back. It's a joke, it's a house of mirrors, this reality. Your darkest, darkest dream, the darkest, darkest thing you ever see is a reflection of itself. The most beautiful is a reflection of itself. There's nothing which can be rejected, but the person, the separate self, is always rejecting. It's always trying to get out of that intimacy. It's always trying to just get to pleasure, which is a natural functioning of the body to move towards pleasure. That's the way, that's the direction it will always go towards. It will always walk down the path of moving towards pleasure. But I mean as everything, as this instant accepting everything. This isn't intellectually understandable. You can't understand that because the intellect is moving in time. This is talking about this instant, and in this instant, this presence, this aliveness, there is never a boundary between anything. That means my words are the reflection of you. The computer is a reflection of you. The light is a reflection of you. The feeling of the seat on the bum is a reflection of you, but not as Tom, as that presence. Those cupboards, the onions or the oranges, whatever they are, the bowls. Everything. The dislike, the love, the darkness, the warmth, the beauty. All of it is it. For this could never be comprehended. Comprehension is moving. Comprehension is changing. It will always be lost. It could never be a feeling because feelings are changing.
So, like, even the experience of the body in terms of sensations is just something which is appearing in that aliveness.
Yeah.
So,
But
if I had another sense, that would also appear
in that aliveness. But the separate self, it's claiming the senses, and then it claims that aliveness to end at the senses. But everything that's sensed is that aliveness as well. There's never a outside of presence. Never. Has it ever been outside this instant?
So you said it doesn't end at the senses. I don't understand what could be beyond the senses. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, no, there isn't beyond the senses, but we imagine there's an outside the senses. And it's hard to talk about because no, there is no outside of the senses. But it's like if you put those goggles on, it seems that way. It seems there's a world and then there's senses that sense the world. And then simultaneously, what this presence is doing is it's looking from billions of different angles as well at this one world. And it's all happening simultaneously. It's so creative. And each instrument has a different experience of this world. But there's not really this world happening. It's like if 20 of us put on Google goggles and all looked at the same computer program. It's the one computer program. And really the senses that you put on of those goggles and the world are the same.
See, you said stuff like there's the aliveness and then there's instruments of that aliveness, which kind of makes me think that like your experience isn't bound to like your body. When that doesn't really make sense to me because obviously you have to see with your eyes and hear with your ears.
Yeah. But there's nothing in here which claims that it is something inside this body sensing a separate world. There just is everything appearing. There's nothing looking at this cup, there is simply this cup.
Yeah, it feels like I have like a grasp on it now, but I obviously don't because I'm like worried that it's not permanent. I'm like, oh no, I have to keep it. Yeah, and that just doesn't make sense from what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit upset because I thought it was going to be my environment and all that. So I say it's not. So.
But that's the barrier that stands in the way. That you imagine yourself something that's going to get enlightened. And so there is this idea in time of something that's going to get something, when there's nothing that can get anything here. There is just life happening. That is the enlightenment.